Welcome to Achievement Guidebook, where we show you games you can get easy achievements and trophies in it. And you guys have been asking for this episode for a while now. You're like, Stryker, what about the Telltale Games? What about Walking Dead? What about Tales of the Borderlands? What about Game of Thrones? These games are so easy. Well, shut up for a minute, let me talk. So when I started Achievement Guidebook, I had three criteria. One was games that required very little skill level, games that required very little time commitment, and games that required very little or low cost, and or they had been offered for free already, like with Microsoft's Games with Gold or with PlayStation and the PS Plus subscription stuff. And Telltale would normally break two of these rules all the time. Like Walking Dead Season 1 and 2, these games would take you upwards of 10 to 14 hours to beat. All the other games on this list also take around 8 to 10 hours at least, not including Walking Dead Michonne, that's only 3.5. And for the most part, the suggested retail price for all the Telltale interactive stories, as they call them, it's around $25 US. Now, they do go on sale at certain times, so some of these you can get pretty cheap, so I'm covering them now anyway. And the good thing is that two of these games have missable achievements. I'll note those when they come up. And also, a lot of these games you can actually double dip on, especially with Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. You can earn trophies or achievements for these games and their respective last-gen versions. So be aware of that. You might not get the full 1,000, but you're going to get at least 500 or 800. And so, yeah, this doesn't cover Back to the Future or the Jurassic Park Telltale game, because those have a lot of missable achievements. So here we go. Here's the full list of games that we're going to basically be covering here. The Walking Dead Season 1. Walking Dead Season 2. Walking Dead Michonne, the so-called miniseries. Tales from the Borderlands, which is pretty good. Game of Thrones. And finally, there's Batman, a Telltale series. Now, I'm not going to be using any footage from this because it's the newest on this list, and I don't want to ruin nearly anything. But we're already going to cover everything else you need to know about the other games, but this game works just like the other ones. Finish a chapter, you get an achievement. And these are the game mechanics. These are the gameplay mechanics that you will find throughout all of the games that we're covering. A lot of them are very similar. At some point, you'll usually get a chance to take control of your character, and you'll be able to move around a limited environment. You'll be able to look at things. You'll be able to interact with them. By hitting Y or triangle, you'll often, your character will make a short quip, smart comment, or just basically identify that, yes, this is a crowbar, and it looks kind of battered or something. They'll make some kind of reference to it, and then you'll move on. A lot of times, you need to trigger things, like when I use the binoculars here, I triggered the fact that there's a ferry out in the distance. I'm probably pretty sure that I needed to see that in order to move on to the next area. And oftentimes when you're in these environments where you need to click on multiple things, sometimes there's a hotspot that will basically move you on to the next chapter. Or in this case, like, I can interact with a lot of different things. I can look over the side here. For the most part, though, once I interact with my friends and help them with the rigging, then it kind of moves on to the next section. And then I can finally interact with another one of my crewmates that will eventually move on to the next scene. Like here, I need to help with the sails. Now this is a more involved cutscene because I'm actually going to get a question asked of me, and that's where the conversation mechanic comes in that Telltale is well known for, where your character will have a choice, or else they'll be asked a question, and they have a limited amount of time in order to respond. This is across all games. Sometimes there's a decision that might be paused, but they always tell you the option that you just picked. They'll often tell you if a character is going to remember that you said something specific. But that's kind of how all these games work. And now, see, I've helped with the rigging. That kind of took away a number of other options but it also added an option for me to finally talk to a crew member that's on the other side of the boat so that I could finally move this scene on. And this is the limited gameplay that Telltale Games are known for. It's just interacting with things. See, I can finally talk to this guy. I couldn't before, but now I can because I met the requirements and I talked to the other people. You're also going to have a limited inventory, and for the most part, if you come across a crowbar, an axe, a machete, or a tool of some kind, chances are you're going to need to use it in the same scene, in the same room, or quite possibly in the very near future. This isn't like the old classic adventure games where they often would try to give you a lot of different items so as not to make it easy in order to figure out which items needed to interact with which items. But here, I mean, obviously we have a door, we can't get it open, your machete isn't going to work, so once we've clicked on it once, it'll give us the option to use that crowbar. So again, it's very simple gameplay, and of course there's the usual QuickTime events where you need to push a button or mash it fast or move the analog sticks. There's that too, don't forget those. And now we have the games. Now we're going to cover each game, and I'm going to tell you what I think of it and how to get your stuff. So, Walking Dead Season 1 is one of the two only games that I'm talking about that have missable achievements. And both of those are in the special episode 400 Days. So, more specifically, it's 2 out of 3 achievement, or trophy, and Reunited. So the first one, the 2 out of 3, is actually found during Wyatt's chapter. The second one, Reunited, is found during Russell's chapter. Now, if you miss these, they actually are obtainable fairly early on. There's the 400 Days one, where you basically follow the lives of separate people that converge apparently into one story. But yeah, in Wyatt, you basically have to beat him in a game of rock, paper, scissors. So if you fail that, just quickly hit start and reset to the last checkpoint. You'll get to try again. But it happens fairly early. You hit something with your car, and you decide who's going to leave the car in order to check out what's going on. So you basically play rock, paper, scissors. That's the one missable one. So you might need to come back to that. Because you have to basically beat your friend, and it's completely random. I mean, you can't just pick paper, scissors, and then rock and win. You literally have to beat him fair and square, and it's all randomized. So that's what you're gonna have to do. The second one, which is found in Russell's chapter, which I said is called Reunited. This is also right at the beginning of Russell's chapter. Or, I mean, it's right at the beginning of the chapter. You'll be walking down the street a little bit, you'll see a truck barreling down toward you, and you must quickly choose whether to hide or stand your ground. As long as you pick to hide, you will find an old friend, and you will be, as the thing says, reunited. So it's possible you might have even got that one just by playing the game, but because of the randomness with the rock, paper, scissors game in Wyatt's chapter, yeah, you're probably going to need to replay that one, but like I said, it happens fairly quickly. You can always copy a save file over and do it that way, so it doesn't ruin anything that you've already done in the thing. But yeah, The Walking Dead Season 1, it's an excellent game. It's got a great story, but, you know, like with other Telltale games, there just isn't much interaction. But it's actually supposedly has won about 90 Game of the Year awards from a number of different sources, including was the Video Game Awards too. I think they gave this their Game of the Year award. So, I mean, look, it's a good game, but compared to the other games that cost multi-millions of dollars and that put a lot of effort into gameplay and mechanics and all that, I don't think this should have won. But it's definitely probably one of the best interactive stories out there. And that's probably a safe way of describing what Telltale is doing now. They're not adventure games really anymore. And then we have The Walking Dead Season 2. Completely fun. There's absolutely no missable achievements. You can play it right through the end. You don't have to worry about having a walkthrough or anything else. by your side. So just enjoy it. It's also a pretty good story. And yeah, that's really all I can say. So have fun.
Remember, the hotter the air is, the more
Okay, so this is based on the graphic novel called Fables, but obviously there's already a Fable game series. So this was renamed The Wolf Among Us. And it's actually a pretty good story, and it does some things a little bit different. Unfortunately, it has at least one missable achievement. So the whole way this game works is that there's these little books that you pick up on each of the characters, and by doing one thing you might cancel yourself out of another. So yeah, that's kind of what ends up being missable, is that sometimes you'll make a choice that won't give you the book, the Fable book for the character that you need. So yeah, you're basically unlocking all the Book of Fables entries, which is the Novice Librarian. So, you know, and for the most part, they're all given to you, but there's one that's apparently missable in Chapter 2 for Bluebeard, which unlocks only if and only if you open up the file on Bigsby's desk in his apartment. Apparently it's missable, but you can also read it in Chapter 3. But, you know, just look at it on his desk in Chapter 2. Then obviously at the very end of the game, there's two different options you can do, and you'll have to copy and paste your save file and redo the second option in order for you to get it. That way it won't cost you a whole secondary playthrough. But yeah, you know what, the story's pretty interesting, and it's pretty fun to be in their world. The voice acting is done pretty well, and it's definitely nice to have something different than zombies. Otherwise it would just be too much zombies. But yeah, just be aware, you're gonna have to make sure that you're following something, or at the very least, after you beat the game, you know, copy your save file and look up on XboxAchievements.com. I'm sure there's an equivalent for you trophy hunters as well, but you'll find somebody there that's already done the legwork and knows exactly which Fable book you're missing. So be sure to check that out. But like I said, it's mostly Chapter 2, and then there's also one at the end. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I really don't have the time to cover every single one, but just know that there's a few missable ones here. So, you know, that's going to take away, you know, 20, 25 points here and there. But people have done these. A lot of them are in Chapter 6, and there's a couple in Chapter 5.
Yes, please. Thank you.
And Tales of the Borderlands. Now, this is a fantastic game, especially if you like Borderlands. No missable achievements. Like I said, there's only those two games out of the ones that we're covering that are missable, and that's Walking Dead Season 1 and then Wolf Among Us. Those are the only ones. All these other ones, all you have to do is simply play through the game and you will automatically unlock. It doesn't matter what your choice is. It doesn't matter anything about it. And I really think that Tales of the Borderland is definitely a step up in quality. Oh, it's got music introductions for each of its chapters. Definitely more effort than the Walking Dead series. I really like the humor a lot more in this. You're going to have a really fun time with this game. So please, check it out and pick it up. Especially if it goes on the cheap. It really is great. Especially if you like Borderlands, like I said. You kind of take for granted the little people that do the stuff behind the scenes in those games that obviously can't attack and kill, you know, thousands of midgets and aliens and whatnot. So it's kind of cool to get sucked into the lives of some secondary characters almost. You know, people that normally would be not on the forefront of a story like this. And that ends the music intro for episode 1. So yeah, I really do like the style of it. Like I said, no missable achievements. You're gonna really like it. You just sit back and enjoy this one. It's a really good time.
I think we killed it.
And Game of Thrones.
Trouble.
Don't worry, there's not going to be any spoilers in this footage. It doesn't give away anything.
You have a man.
I'm actually kind of divided. Now, don't worry. There's no missable achievements. You can get everything just by completing chapter by chapter. The storytelling is a little stilted. I've never really liked this watercolor kind of backgrounds. Yeah, there's a couple of characters that are from the TV show, like, well, Cersei and Tyrion. Tywin? Whatever. But it keeps jumping between all these different stories, so a lot of times in a in a single episode, you're going to be jumping between different points of view of characters like 5 times. And you're going to be visiting, like, is it 4 separate stories, give or take? I don't know. It's not bad. It has some cool moments. Granted, this is stuff that comes right after the end of Season 2 for the TV series of Game of Thrones proper. And as far as we know, there hasn't been any talk about a sequel to this series. So, but I mean, you know, quite honestly, Season 6 has already come out on Blu-ray. So there's a lot of content that has changed, a lot of people that have switched around that aren't available anymore. So, even though they are kind of telling their own story with the Foresters and whatnot, you know, a lot of these characters that are in their story, they don't carry on, you know, to the actual TV series. So, I don't know if there's ever going to be a sequel, but yeah, I never cared for the that pastel look. It just seems like that's their excuse for having blurry backgrounds that look like they're sort of, you know, hand-painted or painted with oil colors or, you know, something like that, watercolors, whatever you want to call it. I just think it's kind of a lazy way of not really defining, you know, backgrounds or having, you know, crisp visuals. But, yeah, whatever. I guess it is what it is. And like I said, yeah, the stories they're okay. But definitely this is one of those games that you can easily play through.
She's my friend.
I believe it takes you at least a good...
She's been at my side for a long time.
10 hours?
Was it them?
10 or 12 hours to do everything, so you definitely get your money's worth.
Too many for us to take.
And we also have The Walking Dead Michonne, which has been described as a mini-series because you literally can beat it in 3.5 hours. Yeah, that's right, compared to the proper Walking Dead Season 1 and 2, where you could actually be spending about 10 to even 14 hours of time. Michonne here only has 3 episodes, and the first episode you can beat in an hour and a half, the second one is an hour, and the third one is also about an hour. So yeah, it's over with pretty quickly, get it cheap. And then, of course, there's Batman, a Telltale series. Like I said, I'm not going to show any other footage besides what you are seeing here of the intro. Well, of the title screen, I should say. But just rest assured, no missable achievements. Everything can be gotten just by completing the game. It does not matter what choices you make in the game. So, rest aside, save this one for a rainy night. Download all of your episodes, and if you can get it for a good price, hey, that's even better. But yeah, so typical asking price is around $25 for a lot of these. But on sale, sometimes you can get them half off or even more. So always be looking for them. The difficulties for these, they range from, like I said, about Michonne was 3.5 hours. But most of the other games are going to be 10 to 15 hours, but the difficulty is a 1 or a 2.